When I woke up, I received a calendar invite with no title and no sender, dropped into my inbox sometime in the gray stretch before the sun would rise. No agenda, no conference link, just a single line in the notes field. Bring an umbrella, there will be fallout. It would have been poetic if it did not land on the morning I was scheduled to present Asterline Systems' newest security platform to a boardroom full of buyers from Cobalt Crown Holdings, a client so wealthy they treated legal settlements like parking tickets. I stared at the invite until my coffee went cold, then forwarded it to myself from my personal email, because paranoia is just prudence with better posture. I almost deleted it after that. Almost. But something about the phrasing felt less like a prank and more like someone leaning close to whisper, "Watch your step," while holding a rake behind their back. By the time I reached the office, the lobby smelled like lemon disinfectant and ambition. Asterline had a habit of scrubbing the building whenever important guests arrived, as if clean floors could compensate for dirty leadership. My name is Harper Voss. I build systems that survive bad decisions. At least, I used to. On the elevator, Jules Moreno from Product leaned in and muttered, "You look like you saw a ghost." "I saw a meeting request," I said. "Much worse." Jules snorted and adjusted his tie like it was trying to strangle him. "Relax. You are the adult in every room you enter, especially the one we are about to enter." That was sweet, also inaccurate. Adults do not usually walk into rooms where Blaine Rourke is waiting. Blaine was Asterline's chief executive, a man who could turn any sentence into a verdict. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His disappointment had a radius. The demo room was already arranged like a trial. Long table, water pitchers, notepads that would never be used. The Cobalt Crown delegation sat in the center like they owned the air. Our executives lined up along the far side like decorative statues. Blaine nodded at me without warmth. "Start whenever you are ready." I connected my laptop. The projector hummed to life. On the wall, our platform loaded. A clean dashboard, bright metrics, the kind of interface that made executives feel safe without requiring them to understand anything. I took a breath. "Thank you for coming. What you are seeing is Sentinel Spire, built to..." The screen went black. Not a flicker. Not a glitch. A clean, immediate death, like someone had cut the throat of the presentation and walked away whistling. For half a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Blaine's voice sliced through the silence. "This is on you," he said, calm as a surgeon. "Get out. Do not come back." The projector fan kept running, loud and useless, as if it was offended by the awkwardness and wanted to contribute. I blinked at the dead screen, then at my laptop, which was still awake and displaying the dashboard like nothing had happened. My hands stayed on the table because if I pulled them back, I thought they might shake. A security guard was already at the door. That was the first thing that felt wrong. "Hold on," said one of the Cobalt Crown executives, a woman with silver hair and eyes like sharpened coins. "Is this not the engineer who patched your breach last year?" Blaine did not even glance at her. "Irrelevant. Harper does not have the experience for this level." I could have laughed. I did not. I was too busy noticing that my access card had been disabled so quickly, the badge reader flashed red before I even stood up. An IT staffer I did not recognize appeared beside me, badge turned outward, as if the plastic alone gave him authority. "Company policy," he said, already reaching for my laptop bag. "We will be wiping your personal drive immediately." "Personal?" I repeated. "This is my machine." He did not meet my eyes. Not anymore. Chairs stopped moving. Conversations froze. The air changed. People were watching me the way they watch a glass they expect to shatter. Blaine looked at the Cobalt Crown delegation with a regretful smile. "We will reschedule with a competent team." The contract binder closed with a soft final sound, like a coffin lid. As security guided me toward the door, I caught Jules's gaze. He looked like he wanted to speak. He did not. He stared at his own notepad like it might teach him how to survive. In the hall, The glass walls showed the office floor. Rows of desks, bright screens, employees pretending that nothing was happening because fear is contagious, and they did not want symptoms. Human resources waited near a small conference room, tablet in hand, smile pasted on like cheap wallpaper. The rep, Tess Caldwell, angled the screen toward me. "This keeps your record clean," she said. "Standard language. You accept responsibility for the outage. Non-disparagement. Confidentiality." I scrolled. My name appeared everywhere. Blaine's name appeared nowhere. I looked up. "I want the incident logs." Tess's smile did not move. "Those are being reviewed." I checked the timestamps anyway. The outage was recorded as starting earlier than my memory, earlier than I had even touched the console. And the email I had sent days ago, marked urgent, warning about a fragile dependency in the demo environment, gone. If this was truly my fault, why was the evidence being erased so carefully? Behind Tess, the door opened. Security glanced in, waiting, as if I might try to escape through a vent. Tess tapped the signature line. "End of day, Harper." I slid the tablet back without signing. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with an internal alert. Account access suspended. Effective immediately. Then, a second buzz, from an address I did not recognize, containing a single sentence. "If you want to know who cut the screen, do not go home. Go to the old server closet." I stopped in the corridor, the office noise washing around me like a river around a stone. "Fallout," the invite had said. Someone had brought the umbrella. The old server closet was not really a closet anymore. It had been repurposed into a wellness nook during Asterline's phase where leadership pretended burnout could be cured with scented candles. The door still had the original keypad, though, because executives love rebranding more than they love actual labor. I should not have been able to get in. My badge was dead. My corporate access had been revoked with the speed of a public execution. But my fingers remembered a code from years ago, back when we were understaffed and practical. Back when I installed a maintenance override because systems fail at inconvenient moments and I do not enjoy begging for permission. The lock beeped. The door opened. Inside, the air was cooler and dustier than the rest of the floor. The wellness decor was still there, a sad yoga mat rolled into a corner like it had given up. Behind it, a cabinet housed the relics: legacy switches, an old KVM, and a small utility console that should have been decommissioned. A sticky note was taped to the console, fresh ink, neat handwriting. "You were never the target. You were the scapegoat. Check the mirror logs." Mirror logs. The quiet backups that tracked changes across deployments, the kind of thing executives forget exists because they only notice infrastructure after it breaks. My pulse tightened into something sharp. I logged in using a local credential that was not tied to my name, because I have never been naive enough to put my livelihood behind a single account. The console loaded. Asterline's internal network map unfolded like a confession. The demo environment had not failed. It had been told to fail. A conditional redirect had been inserted into the presentation pipeline, disguised as a redundancy check, elegant enough to pass casual review. It triggered only when the system detected Cobalt Crown devices on the network, and only during a public-facing showcase. Someone had built a trap that required my presence to spring. I stared at the commit trail. The signature on the change was mine. Not just my name, my formatting habits, my spacing, my favorite variable naming pattern, the one I used when I was tired and annoyed and trying to finish something fast. Whoever did this knew my work the way a pickpocket knows a coat pocket. They had worn my fingerprints like gloves. A soft sound came from the hallway, and I froze. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, not the hurried shuffle of an employee chasing coffee. The door clicked shut behind someone. "I hoped you would come," said a voice I had not heard in years. I turned. A man stood in the doorway with an easy posture and a smile that was too patient to be friendly. He was dressed like he belonged in boardrooms and courtrooms, depending on the hour. Silas Wren. Once upon a time, Silas and I had been peers at a competing firm. He was brilliant and vindictive, the sort of person who could quote policy while breaking it. He had lost a promotion to me years ago and never treated it like a loss. He treated it like a debt. Asterline security is worse than I thought, I said, because fear is easier to manage when it wears sarcasm. Silas chuckled. They are not worse. They are simply loyal to the wrong people. You sent the message? I sent the invitation, he corrected. An umbrella metaphor seemed appropriate. I did not move toward him. Why are you here? He held up his hands, empty. Because Blaine Rourke is about to burn you alive on the altar of corporate optics, and you are too smart to stand still for it. I glanced back at the console. Did you sabotage the demo? Silas looked almost offended. No, that was not my artistry. That was Blaine's desperation wearing your name. That is a serious accusation. Silas's smile sharpened. It is an accurate one. I did not trust him. Trust is for people who are not actively being erased. Still, I asked, why would Blaine frame me? I built half of his infrastructure. Silas stepped closer, careful, like he was approaching a skittish animal. Because you also built the early backbone for Asterline's compliance reporting. The part that no one understands. The part that can hide sins in plain sight. A chill crawled up my arms. You are saying there is something in the logs. I am saying Blaine is not afraid of failure, Silas said. He is afraid of discovery. My phone buzzed again. Another email. Another anonymous sender. They are preparing a statement. Your name is already in the headline. Silas watched my face. They will call you reckless. They will call you negligent. They will suggest you were compromised. And you are here to save me? I asked. He shrugged. I am here to offer you leverage. I recently acquired a small consultancy, and I need someone who can move fast. That is convenient. Yes, Silas said, unbothered. Convenience is the currency of survival. I looked at the console again. The mirror logs were still open, showing the forged commit trail, the trigger conditions, the sabotage nested inside my work like a parasite. I could prove I had been framed. But proof alone does not protect you in a world that sells narratives for profit. What do you want? I asked. Silas's eyes glinted. I want Blaine to bleed in daylight. Witty or not, that was the first honest thing he had said. My phone buzzed a third time, and this time it was a message from Jules. HR is asking about your personal backup drive. They are acting like it is evidence. Harper, what did you build that they are so afraid of? I swallowed, because I knew the answer, and I hated it. Years ago, I built an emergency audit thread into Asterline's reporting pipeline, a quiet watchdog designed to catch manipulation, because I did not trust executives to behave when no one was looking. I never activated it. I never needed to. Until now. Silas tilted his head. You have a tool, do not you? I held his gaze. Maybe I have a match. Silas smiled. Then light it. Silas's consultancy occupied 2 floors of a renovated warehouse across town, the kind of place that tried to look scrappy while charging premium rent. The lobby had exposed brick, minimalist art, and a receptionist who typed with the expression of someone auditioning for a murder mystery. The company was called Larkspur Stratagem, subtle as a sledgehammer. Silas led me into a conference room with glass walls and a table that probably cost more than my old salary. A small team waited inside, a compliance lawyer with tired eyes, a network analyst tapping a pen like it owed him money, and a communications director whose smile was professionally terrifying. Silas gestured to the seat nearest the screens. Harper, meet the people who will help you outmaneuver a man who thinks consequences for other people. I sat, because refusing would have been pride, and pride is expensive. On the main display, the news was already moving. Asterline Systems demo disaster. Security engineer removed. Client talks stalled. My name was not on the banner yet. It would be soon. Before we do anything, said the lawyer, Dina Shore, I need to know one thing. Did you actually cause the outage? No, I said. Someone wrote my signature into a sabotage trigger. I have the mirror logs. The analyst, Rowan Pike, leaned forward. Show us. I pulled a sanitized export from the server closet console because I was not going to hand anyone raw access to Asterline's guts, not even my own. Lines of code scrolled across the display. Commit timestamps, deployment hashes, trigger conditions tied to Cobalt Crown devices. Rowan whistled low. That is surgical. Dina's mouth tightened. And the signature is yours. It is a forgery, I said. A good one. Silas folded his arms. Blaine has a problem, and you are his solution. If he can make you the villain, he becomes the hero who removed you. The communications director, Cara Dune, lifted an eyebrow. We can flip the story, but only if we have something that does not look like revenge. It is revenge, I said. I am simply willing to dress it in responsible clothing. Cara smiled, delighted. That is the best kind. I opened a second file, one I had not touched in years, my dormant watchdog thread. It sat inside the compliance pipeline like a sleeping animal. If activated, it would cross-check internal edits against external records, flagging discrepancies that suggested manipulation. A system designed to catch liars. Rowan's eyes widened. You built this inside Asterline? Back when we were still pretending to care about integrity, I said. Silas's voice softened. Can you activate it? Yes, I said. But it will make noise. Dina nodded. Noise is fine. Evidence is better. I hesitated, because I knew what evidence would mean. It would not just implicate Blaine, it would implicate anyone who benefited. And companies do not like it when you shine a light on the whole room instead of a single rat. Silas leaned closer. Harper, this is your chance to control the story. My story, I corrected. He spread his hands. Of course. My phone buzzed again. Asterline internal number. I did not pick up. I let it ring until it stopped, and then a text appeared, from Tess in HR. Legal will pursue if you do not sign today. Also, your colleague, Lena Park, is under review for unauthorized access. Lena Park, junior engineer. Brilliant. Conscientious. The only person who had ever looked me in the eye after my firing and mouthed, I am sorry. Like apology could be a life raft. My stomach turned cold. They are blaming Lena. Silas frowned. Classic. Blame the least protected. It is like corporate tradition. Rowan tapped the screen. If they go after her, they will use her access records. They will claim she helped you. She did not, I said. She followed instructions. Dina's voice was flat. Truth does not matter in preliminary filings. Only narrative. Silas watched me carefully. Blaine will call you soon. He will offer you something. A settlement, a restored title, a golden parachute made of lies. Let me guess, I said, in exchange for silence. Silas smiled. You learn fast. My screen chimed. A new email arrived from an unknown address. Subject line, umbrella. Inside was a single PDF. I opened it, and my blood ran colder. It was a draft press release, written in a calm corporate tone, announcing that Asterline had identified the internal source of the breach, naming me as the responsible party, and discovered a pattern of unauthorized access involving an associate, naming Lena. At the bottom, a quote attributed to Blaine, full of regret and righteousness. Kara exhaled slowly. He wrote the ending already. Not yet, I said. Silas tilted his head. What are you thinking? I stared at the watchdog thread, the sleeping system that could turn Asterline's lies into a public autopsy. I am thinking, I said, that if Blaine wants a villain so badly, I can give him one. Rowan grinned. That sounds dangerous. It is, I said, but it is also efficient. I began writing the activation sequence, careful and quiet, setting it to run not as a blunt alarm, but as a controlled leak. A cascade of verifiable records, released in layers, each one impossible to dismiss without admitting the whole structure was rotten. Dina raised a finger. One condition: we do this legally. No hacking, no unauthorized entry. We use what you already have access to. I already have access, I said, because the maintenance override still worked, and Blaine had been too arrogant to imagine I would ever use it. Silas's smile returned, sharp and satisfied. Then we are in business. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Blaine. I answered, put it on speaker, and kept typing. Harper, Blaine said, voice smooth as polished stone. This has gotten messy. I agree, I said. You should clean it up. A pause. You can help me do that. Rowan mouthed. Here it comes, like we were watching a predictable show. Blaine continued. Sign the agreement. Accept responsibility. Keep quiet. And Lena will be fine. My fingers stopped over the keyboard. Silas's eyes narrowed, suddenly less amused. Blaine's tone softened, like he was offering mercy. You have always been practical. Be practical now. I smiled, because sometimes the only sane response is humor. Blaine, I said, I am about to be extremely practical. Blaine called it a private compliance session, which was corporate slang for, we want witnesses when we corner you. The invite arrived not long after the call, stamped urgent, with a location at Asterline headquarters, and an agenda that read like a bedtime story. Certification review, risk mitigation, closure. Closure is what people say when they want you to stop asking questions. Dina insisted on coming, which Blaine predictably denied. So Silas sent me with two things instead: a portable packet of the watchdog outputs, time-stamped and verified, and Kara's coaching on tone. Do not sound angry, Kara said. Sound amused. Anger makes you look guilty. Amusement makes them look foolish. I can do amused, I said. It is my favorite emotion. When I arrived, security did not escort me out this time. They escorted me in, which somehow felt worse. The meeting room was smaller than the demo theater, but the air was heavier. Asterline had placed a seal on the door, the kind auditors use when they want to emphasize that someone is about to sweat. Blaine sat at the far end of the table, hands folded. Tess from HR sat beside him with a tablet. Two internal attorneys sat nearby with matching expressions of practiced neutrality. And at the opposite end, three external auditors waited, laptops open, eyes alert. Blaine smiled as if we were old friends meeting for brunch. Harper, thank you for coming. Of course, I said. I enjoy being invited to my own funeral. One auditor blinked, suppressing a smile. Blaine's did not move. Tess slid the tablet toward me. This is the certification. It states that the demo outage was accidental and that there were no undocumented access paths in the system. I did not touch it. And if I sign? Blaine's voice remained gentle. Then we resolve this. You move on. Lena moves on. There it is, I said, bright as sunshine. The hostage clause. Tess's fingers tightened around her pen. One of the internal attorneys cleared his throat. Harper, we advise you to choose your words carefully. I am choosing them very carefully, I said. That is why they sting. Blaine leaned back. Do you really want to do this here? I did not choose the venue, I said. You did. I assume you wanted an audience. The lead auditor, a woman named Marcia Kent, spoke calmly. Ms. Voss, do you have evidence that contradicts the certification? Yes, I said. And before anyone accuses me of theatrics, I will note that you sealed the door. I did not. I stood, connected my device to the display port, and mirrored my screen onto the wall. The room's lights reflected off the glass like watchful eyes. Blaine's jaw tightened by a fraction. This is unnecessary. Unnecessary is framing people, I said. This is simply efficient. I opened the first file. The mirror log export showing the sabotage trigger inserted into the demo pipeline. The forged signature. The conditions tied to Cobalt Crown devices. The revision history that had been corrected after my firing. One of the auditors leaned forward. Another began typing, fast. Blaine's tone stayed level. That proves nothing. Anyone could fabricate logs. True, I said. Which is why I brought something harder to forge. I opened the watchdog output. The screen filled with cross-referenced records. Internal compliance reports altered after submission, risk flags deleted, audit trails rewritten, and a pattern of financial transfers routed through shell entities with names like Blue Lantern Logistics and Harbor Thread Consulting, companies that existed only on paper and in bank ledgers. A quiet sound came from somewhere down the table, like someone's certainty breaking. Marcia's voice remained calm, but her eyes sharpened. These transfers, are these internal accounts? Yes, I said. And the edits correlate with executive access windows. Blaine stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. This is highly inappropriate. So was disabling my badge before I even left the room, I replied. So was ordering my personal drive wiped. So was rewriting timestamps. One internal attorney snapped. You are admitting unauthorized access. I nodded. I am admitting I built an integrity thread years ago to prevent exactly this, because I suspected leadership would eventually treat compliance like a suggestion. I did not activate it until today. Blaine's face flushed, then drained. He looked at Tess like she had betrayed him. Tess looked like she wanted to become furniture. Marcia closed her laptop slowly. Mr. Rourke, we will need you to remain seated. Blaine's voice rose, not loud, but strained. You do not understand. This is proprietary. It is fraud, Marcia said, still calm. And your company's attempts to assign blame to staff members do not improve your position. I glanced at Blaine. Where is Lena? Blaine's mouth opened, closed. He looked briefly, like a man realizing the stage has collapsed under him. An agent at the back of the room, who had been pretending to be security, stepped forward. Ms. Park has been contacted. She is not being charged at this time. I exhaled once, controlled, like I was releasing a weight I had carried in my teeth. Blaine's voice turned brittle. Harper, we can negotiate. I smiled, because Kara was right. No, I said. You can face consequences. The seal on the door broke with a soft rip. The room's air changed again, lighter, as if the building itself had been holding its breath. And Blaine, for the first time since I met him, looked afraid. They escorted Blaine out through a side corridor. No shouting, no dramatic collapse, just the quiet humiliation of a man who had always assumed the world would negotiate with him. His suit jacket hung off his shoulders like it no longer belonged to him. He did not look at me. He stared straight ahead, as if eye contact might make it real. In the meeting room, the auditors stayed behind with their laptops and their questions. Marcia asked me to remain available. Dina's voice echoed in my head. We do this legally. I had walked the line, narrow, sharp, and necessary. When the formalities ended, I stepped into the hallway and found Lena sitting on a bench near the elevators, hands clasped, shoulders rigid, as if she had been assembled that way. She stood the moment she saw me. They told me I was under investigation, she said, voice tight. Then they told me it was a misunderstanding. Nothing makes sense. It makes sense if you assume they were lying, I said. A laugh escaped her, startled and bitter. You always say the quiet part out loud. I used to say it quietly, I replied. It did not improve anything. Lena studied my face. They said you admitted you built something inside the system. I built a watchdog, I said. It barked. She swallowed. Are you going to be arrested? I might be inconvenienced, I said. But Blaine will be indicted. I consider that a fair trade. Lena's eyes shone with something that was not quite relief and not quite rage, but a blend of both. Why did you do it? I leaned against the wall. My legs felt suddenly heavy, like my body had been waiting to collapse until the danger passed. Because he wanted to bury you. Because he wanted to bury me. Because silence was the only currency he respected. Lena nodded slowly. Thank you. I wanted to tell her she did not owe me gratitude. I wanted to tell her that I should have protected her sooner. Instead, I said the only thing that would not turn into a speech. Go home, I told her. Sleep. And if anyone calls you, do not answer until Dina speaks to you. She almost smiled. You sound like a responsible adult. Do not spread that rumor, I said. Later, outside the building, the air tasted cleaner than it had in years. Not because the city had changed, but because my chest was no longer full of unspoken things. My phone buzzed. A message from Silas. You burned the bridge and salted the river. Beautiful work. I stared at it, then replied, I did not do it for beauty. I did it for function. Another message appeared, this one from Jules. They are in chaos. People are resigning. Also, someone put a plant on your old desk. It is thriving out of spite. I exhaled a laugh, brief and sharp. Even in disaster, office culture found time for pettiness. The next day, sometime after the sky decided to stop being dramatic, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The watchdog outputs were already in the hands of auditors and regulators. That was the legal path. But I had learned something in the last stretch of my career. Systems fail most when knowledge is hoarded. So I did the second thing, the revenge that did not require blood, only sunlight. I published the framework I had built before Asterline wrapped it in branding and executive speeches. Not their version, mine. The plain, sturdy blueprint, safeguards documented, failure modes explained, best practices spelled out like instructions for assembling furniture that will not collapse. No company logo, no paywall, no gatekeeper. A message appeared almost immediately from an address I did not recognize. This will ruin leverage. I wrote back. Good. Leverage is how people like Blaine stay in power. Another message arrived, from a different unknown sender. You are making enemies. I smiled at the screen. I already had enemies. Now they have to introduce themselves. By late afternoon, Dina called. Regulators want a statement. They will ask why you built the watchdog. I looked at my hands, at the faint dents left by years of gripping stress like it was a handle. Tell them the truth, I said. I built it because leadership kept asking for shortcuts, and shortcuts always come due. When I ended the call, I walked to the window and watched people move along the street, carrying groceries, talking into phones, living lives untouched by corporate implosions. My calendar was empty. My inbox was quiet. The silence felt strange, not like punishment, but like space. Then one last message arrived. No subject, no greeting. We should talk. Not everyone wanted you erased. I did not delete it. I did not answer it either. I opened a new file and began outlining what came next. Because revenge is satisfying, but rebuilding is the part that lasts. And this time, I was going to build something that did not require anyone's permission to tell the truth.